All right. Welcome on into another slightly zooted stream. I am a little better recovered than I was on Wednesday, just because the infusion started earlier in the day, and I'm on time today because the infusion started on time. But other than that, we are looking at a pretty relaxed stream. Turns out half a gram of ketamine will do that to you. But I would be more than happy to discuss any topics that interest you. Let's see. I was reading a bit of news, but the trouble with reading news on ketamine is you don't necessarily remember all of it afterwards. So I may have to go back and see if I can find some of what I was reading today. Because there was some distinct napping in between there. Even so, shouldn't be a problem. Just means I'm gonna have a little relaxed energy today. So we shall see how that goes. Yeah, let me make sure I'm muted there. Okay, good. For the moment, I think we're doing just chatting. I may jump into a game a little bit later, but I am more than happy to relax and chill some more. To be honest, I may wind up just sitting in my room talking to myself for an extended period of time this evening. Oh, that's rather interesting. I had an unknown user follow me. I appreciate you, unknown user. But yeah, alright, cool. Um, yeah, I'm happy to discuss. Let's see. I was reading some news earlier, and I seem to have lost the plot a bit on it. Washington Post reported on March 22nd that the Department of Government Efficiency has cost the government $500 billion. Yeah, it tracks. But if they don't destroy it, they can't buy it for cheap and privatize it all. So that's gonna continue. Woman arrested after miscarriage in Georgia under the heartbeat abortion law they have there, which we fucking said was gonna happen, but apparently nobody listens. Uh, ICE is doing more Gestapo things, or Stasi things, depending on where we are in history. Uh, Kentucky GOP supermajority overrides nearly all of Democratic governors' vetoes in one day. Yeah, that tracks. That's apparently Kentucky only need a simple majority to override veto, which is the same as it is to pass the bill in the first place, so I'm not clear on why that's a thing. Utah becomes the first state to ban fluoride in public drinking water. That's fucking stupid, but okay. Much worse teeth among the Mormons. Um, Over 2,000 protests in the wake of student detainment. Which student detainment is the depressing question. Let's see. Oh, that was the PhD student getting abducted by ICE for writing an op-ed in the fucking school newspaper. Yeah, that tracks. Let's see. Trump pardons three co-founders of BitMEX crypto exchange. I only understood about half of those words, and I didn't like most of them. Uh, Trump targets anti-American ideology at Smithsonian museums. That's gonna be stupider than I think it is, and I'm pretty sure it's fucking stupid. Uh, are we just erasing Native American shit? I assume. Uh, oh yeah, they're doing Nazi shit. Yeah, kind of figured. To be honest, I would love to be shocked, but I'm a little past that at this point. Israeli soldier tells CBS News he was ordered to use Palestinians as human shields in Gaza. Okay, that's bad, but don't do the just following orders thing, is all I'm gonna say. A criminology student who murdered woman in beach attack, jailed for minimum 39 years? What the fuck do you mean beach attack? Uh, 21-year-old sat beside a fire on Durley Chine Beach in Dorsey and stabbed the fuck out of her friend too, apparently. Murder and attempted murder, yeah. Sentenced to life in prison, minimum of 39 years. Jesus Christ. Talk about fucking your life up before it even gets started. Yikes. Uh, Jesus Christ. All kinds of shit going on. Most of it bad. This is why reading the news is depressing. Uh, New York County clerk refuses to file Texas fine for doctor accused of prescribing abortion pills. Yeah. It's funny how the states' rights people get all up in arms when states do shit that they don't like. Yeah, interesting. That one's gonna hit SCOTUS and hopefully go a sane direction. Weirdly, I'm kind of counting on Amy Coney Barrett to do not insane shit, which is kind of a horrifying thought, but here we are. Uh, West Texas children treated for vitamin A toxicity? Yeah, because it doesn't fix fucking measles, RFK Jr. Judge orders Trump administration to preserve signal chat on Yemen strikes. Yeah, let's see how that shit goes. Fuck. Could we work? Okay. Microphone's back up and running. I apologize to anybody in the chat. Let's see. FDA staff struggle to meet product review deadlines after Doge layoffs. No shit, they're trying to break it. 144 dead. Jesus. Strong 7.7 Earth magnitude earthquake strikes Myanmar with tremors felt in neighboring Thailand. And they've been involved in a civil war for years at this point, so that's not helping things. Measles case confirmed in person who rode Amtrak train to Washington, D.C. That's 45 minutes from where I live. Could we not do that, please? I really need to get the titrates in my blood checked because those vaccines are sometimes effective and sometimes not, and you can get checked. Like, if you got the MMR vaccine, you can see if you are still covered for measles, mumps, and rubella, and some people have been getting checked and found out, like, they're still good on measles and rubella, but mumps didn't take, so they can get another MMR and get that fixed. I really need to put a little money together and go do that. Let's see. Federal agents try detaining healthcare contractor at DC public elementary school. This is going to be very stupid. Yeah, okay, yeah. This is very stupid. Jesus. Man arrested in Las Vegas Tesla arson facing federal charges. Naturally. U.S. sees large rate in border seizures of eggs while fentanyl rate falls. I, I, that particular one is so stupid I can't even work my way around it. Measles update. West Texas report has seen 400 cases since January. Fucking A. Alright. That was about as depressing as I was anticipating, but I do feel a need to keep up on the news. Pardon me just a moment. Let me grab something and I will be right back. Shouldn't be, but well. Just needed somewhere to prop my feet because I am extremely tired, possibly related to the half a gram of ketamine that was put through me earlier today. So I'm gonna sit here and yap, and if no noise starts coming from me, either my microphone is disconnected, wouldn't be the first time, or I pass the fuck out, which would be the first time I've done that on stream, but also wouldn't shock me, because I definitely am feeling very relaxed, still coming down a bit. I'm mostly sober at this point, but the real effects don't totally go away for about 24 hours as the body just sort of processes it. This may be a slightly shorter stream this evening. I'd like to go for a couple hours at least, but I definitely Or honestly, I may just switch to a game a little earlier than I planned to. Without anyone hopping in the chat, it is sort of tough to do just chatting things. Because otherwise I'm just yapping at myself. So for the moment, I'm just talking. We'll see if there's anyone that comes in has something to talk about. But other than that, I may, do some Slay the Spire. I may play something else. I don't even know. Um, Probably something simple-ish. I don't know. I don't think I have any of the old Call of Duties, but that would be about where my brain's at right now. Just keep it very simple. Um, the only problem with playing something like Slay the Spire is that it requires a bit of math and planning ahead, and my brain is not entirely on that wavelength at the moment. So we shall see if that's where I'm going, but I also have options. Could always go other directions. Oh, I'm sorry, Twitch is telling me that I have things. Do I have things I care about? Invisible War, Deus Ex Invisible War? I don't even know what that is. And game deck? Okay. Apparently I have a couple of things on GOG games. I'm not opposed, but I also don't recognize either of them. That said, I enjoyed the Deus Ex series. Started with Human Revolution and then played the one after it. I still have yet to go back and play the first one. I do own it, but I've not sat down and gone through it. So I would be I wouldn't be opposed to doing that. The only reason I would be twitchy about doing it on stream is I know some people get very touchy when people play RPGs quote unquote the wrong way. And I don't necessarily know that I want to deal with that. But on the other hand, I have no objection to hopping through playing some older games. I am streaming off a laptop, so I'm not playing anything new. That said, I could maybe move my Xbox in here and hook it up. Um, but I also prefer to play that on a bigger screen, so I don't know. It's entirely possible that I'll shift my setup around a little bit over time. Haven't entirely decided. A lot of this is experimentation. I'm early on in all of this, so I would be very happy to do, basic things, but also a little more complex. My ideal, honestly, is to get sort of a Socratic seminar going where, people show up and I discuss things and they present topics. And particularly early on, at least, I would like to have the Discord open to anyone who wants to discuss something. I recognize that if hypothetically I were to wind up getting a bit more popular, that would need to be sort of like a lottery or raffle or drawing kind of thing to see who could get in if there were a bunch of people that wanted to, because I've got it limited to 6 at the moment. Because I think beyond that, you really can't have a conversation. It just kind of becomes a clusterfuck fairly quickly. But that said, I think the idea of it is potentially good. Like to have my dad in here. Very intelligent. I could discuss things with him if I can ever get his Discord working, because his Discord is. He's been fighting Discord for years and fucking hates it, so I may at some point manage to drag him through the process of getting it working. But until then, it's probably mostly going to be me. I've got another uncle that might be willing to hop on, depending on what his schedule allows, but he is generally busy and has 2 teenagers, so, busy on top of busy. So, I don't know. I will see what I can do. I'm not certain, but definitely would like to get more people on to have discussions. Ideally, I'd love to get some experts in their fields on to discuss things. Um, I have a couple of friends who have been in the chat who are both studying things that I did not study. One law, one psychology, and I would love to have more in-depth discussions with them if they've got time. Um, but obviously, college is keeping them fairly busy. So I don't know. I'm focused on this. I need to do a couple of recordings for voice work to put myself out there on Fiverr, see if I can, get a couple of gigs there. Um, got one local gun range I need to go apply to, see if they're looking for people, um, which I'm pretty well qualified for, but I'm also physically disabled, which I know makes it harder for them. And I also know that it's ostensibly illegal to discriminate on the basis of disability, but I'm also aware that that's only if you get caught, and if they don't give you a reason for not hiring you, it's real tough to prove that. And there are a couple of places that I'm pretty sure being physically disabled has, kept me from getting the job, but I got no proof of it, and I've been in a couple of places that have been very good about accommodating my needs, so, you know, I I could have it a lot worse, for sure. It's inconvenient when it comes up, but for the moment, I'm doing okay. Could definitely do with a little more cash flow, but so say we all, especially with the incoming economy crash, which is gonna suck. Gonna be a rough summer, but I don't know. At the moment, I'm pretty relaxed actually, despite all the terrible things going on. Turns out a whole bunch of drugs will do that to you. Um, as it says in the title, drugs I took today were prescribed. They were administered by a nurse practitioner. Um, that doesn't change the fact that it was a lot of ketamine. So I am very, very chill today. I napped a bit on the way back. My dad was kind enough to drive me up and back. So I'm definitely taking it easy this evening. And I don't know. There's always the ability to do other things, but just chatting is kind of where my head's at the moment. Um, if that means I'm just yapping to myself, so be it. But if anybody comes in and wishes to contribute, I'd certainly appreciate having a person to bounce off of and provide feedback, a conversation more than, just a, I don't know, depending on my mood, either lecture or tirade. Um, that said, was there anything else I wanted to talk about? Uh, been watching a lot of The Voice on YouTube. Anybody who has not heard Jorgen Dalmoe's take on Bruce Springsteen's Dancing in the Dark absolutely should. It's phenomenal. Literally, one of the judges was crying, but definitely recommend that. I find that a lot of the like blind auditions make for very good background noise, and there are some mega compilations on YouTube that work very well for that. Let's see. I'm certain that I have other things to discuss, but at the moment they elude me. So for now, I'm just very relaxed. Um, it occurred to me, I think the title for my stream on Sunday is just going to be Extremely Sober Stream. Just see if anybody gets confused by that coming in. This is the only trouble with me, is I'm perfectly capable of entertaining myself, both a blessing and a curse, as my parents can tell you. So, I am. I need to design a banner at some point for my channel. Um, I had an artist offer, but to be perfectly honest, I think I can manage the banner myself. It's anything that would require like character drawing that I would want to have a professional do. Fortunately, I have some friends who are artists that I'd like to contract for that, but the sort of things like having emotes made would come along with getting affiliate if I were to get there. I'd certainly like to. Um, just a question of having an audience that likes the idea of my content find me. And at the moment, I'm just making things that I would like to participate in, and that's where the sort of open discussion is, I would think, ideal for the sort of person who enjoys just chatting, but I also understand that it asks more of people than just chatting, where theoretically, in a just chatting stream, you can generally just sort of hop in, type in the chat when you want to, and have them on as, second screen or background content. Um, Whereas what I'm, you know, preferring or offering is the idea that you could hop in with the streamer, share views, ideas, perspectives, and, debate, discuss, etc. Nothing formal, but, just have those discussions about basically whatever. Um, I'm pretty open to topics. And particularly if I don't know about it. I mean, if someone wants to come in here and discuss vexillology, I don't know shit about flags, but I mean, hell, got an ornithologist who wants to come in here and teach me about birds? Hell yeah. Or discuss, the impact of invasive species in the Everglades. I know a bit about that, admittedly not a ton. Um, but that's sort of the idea where I would love to contact some people and see if they'd be interested in doing like a specific sort of expert uh, presentation in some of these, as opposed to simply having chatters come in. But to start, I would love to have just random people who want to discuss, either something going on in their lives, a scientific topic, a historical topic. I'd be very interested to have those conversations. And I think the difficulty is building up a group of people that are interested in that, who can, be here regularly during my streams. And it's part of the reason that I'm considering doing some more European oriented streams where I could just in a different time zone, basically, where Europe's awake and most of those countries are heavily English speaking. So if they'd be interested in that sort of discussion, I'd be more than happy to have it with them. And then have an American audience, and then ideally, adjust my streaming schedule. The trouble is, I need to get at least a little bit of money out of it in order to really adjust my whole life around the streaming schedule. Whereas right now, I'm treating it more as a serious hobby, where like I plan to be here when I say I'll be here. I plan to spend the time and make things work to the best of my ability, but I also am aware that the more time I spend on this, where like currently I'm not making money off of it, the more time I spend on it, the more time I could be spending trying to get gig jobs or various other things. So I'm very interested in this. I would like to make this work out, but I'm also aware that statistically it's something like 1 in 1,000 people, like, quote unquote, make it streaming. So I don't know. I think my major advantages going in are that I'm reasonably intelligent and open to discussion, and that my voice has been described as relaxing by a number of people, um, who then spend a little more time with me, realize that the voice doesn't stop, and tell me to shut the fuck up. But, they enjoy it for a while. So, I think that's generally positive. Um, God, I am more than a little tired, which, probably is only a little drug related. Prescribed drug related. I would say, Twitch cops don't come at me, but I don't think there are any here. Mostly because I just ain't popular enough to worry about for the most part. Um, I also see that I'm in a time slot that a lot of people stream, so I don't know if it would be better to adjust around that, or if I could feasibly, slot myself in here because I'm looking for a different audience than some of those streamers. Because I'm also looking at like some of the popular ones that I watch that have 3, 4,000 people watching them, and I'm like, that is a big number, but also when you compare to the number of people that have access to the internet in the world, that's not a huge number. So a lot of other people could very reasonably be interested in what I'm doing that's different to what those streamers are doing. Um, or I could turn into a pure gaming streamer, which I wouldn't hate, but I would like to get the just chatting thing going. Um, but I don't know. I'm just a simple man who is still a little bit stoned, and would love to have discussions with people about various things. I think the internet provides a great uh, sort of platform for that, and that's where the idea of the Bodale amphitheater comes from in the picture there. Just the idea that we all show up at a given time and discuss things, listen to one another's perspectives, ideally wearing togas, but that's optional. Um, so that's sort of the idea behind the stream. And the inherent weakness to that idea is that it does require that people show up and talk. Um, because I can sit here and turn the stream on, but it's just, going off into the void if people aren't interested and watching. Um, so I will be interested to see if I can successfully up my numbers enough to join the affiliate program. Um, and for that, I'd like to spend my time, make sure that I'm here regularly. Um, and I don't know much about growing myself on the internet. I think that, if anything, is my weakness as a streamer. Is I never spent time on Instagram or selling um, myself as a product prior to this, and so I'm just getting into the sorts of ideas that will hopefully, draw people in. Um, because that's the thing. I understand people hate clickbait headlines, things like that, but at some level there's an awareness that like it works, and I never want to be the kind of person who uses clickbait headlines to get people in. but I do, uh, at some level, understand why people do that because it does work. And so, while I don't want to be the guy that's doing that, I also do want to have, someone here to interact with. Or I can, hop into a game and do that, and if nobody's watching, I at least have the game to entertain me. But I think that's less valuable than an open forum for discussion. Um, which isn't to say less entertaining, because that's the other part of this platform is there needs to be some level of entertainment to have people drop in, watch things, and some people are not up for an intense discussion. They're getting home and want to turn their brains off after work, which is where I think I want to potentially start using like a European time slot on Saturday, um, so that Europeans who are down for that sort of conversation, and Americans who are off work can come in and discuss things. Um, and I don't know to what degree playing, more modern games would help me grow. I know, that's often a strategy. The popularity of modern games can often get people to click on the stream regardless, even if, some bigger streamers are generally getting more out of it. But I genuinely do want. I have no objection to doing some gaming content, but I'd very much like for a just chatting sort of conversation based stream to take place. That's where I've got the Discord open. If anyone wants to have a conversation, I've got the chat. Um, and currently, I'm still a little stoned, but I would be more than happy to discuss whatever anybody'd like to. But I'm aware that at some level, gaming can draw people in, and I know that there are a number of streamers who do gaming that will spend a little time just chatting prior to gaming, but then game afterwards. So I don't know. I'm, less than 3 weeks into the whole streaming thing, so we shall see where it goes from here. But more than happy to discuss any topics. More than happy to sit here and yap at myself if I need to. Um, how's the ketamine? You know, I am relatively relaxed. Would you believe it? Um, I had half a gram put through me today, half a gram yesterday, and half a gram the day before that. So I am chillin', as it were. Um, drinking a lot of water to keep myself hydrated, but other than that, I am mostly just hanging out, talking. How are things going in your neck of the woods? Reminds me you should get water. Yes, hydration is important. I'm working on a little coffee and I've got the water next to me. Yeah, even when not using, copious amounts of hard drugs, hydration is important. But I definitely am more focused on it following ketamine, because, oh boy, does that really take it out of you. I just was talking about, how I'd love for the channel to become a primarily just chatting thing, but also how I think gaming content can help draw people in to then who then will hang out for just chatting. So
Joke's
I'm
on
not.
you. Who said I'm using hard drugs? I'm
Hey, I
not,
can
but
hear
who
you a
said it?
little bit, but it's coming through pretty quiet.
Ah, is that my bad? Hold on.
No worries.
Hello.
Yep. Okay, I can hear you.
Okay. I almost have a new dongle for my headset that's supposed to be here on the second, so I'm excited for that.
Oh, cool.
But anyways, I joined in response to you saying you should hydrate even when not doing copious amounts of hard drugs, and to which I responded, "Who said I'm not doing copious amounts of hard drugs? I'm
Gotcha.
not, but like no one said I wasn't. You know, I was offended, not actually.
Yeah, as someone, it's very funny to me that, like, I was a pretty straight-laced kid in high school, like, never did any drugs, still to this day never smoked weed. Uh, Never until my 21st birthday had any alcohol. And now I literally mainline ketamine every couple of months.
Yeah,
Now that said,
I
at least my liver went into it pretty clean, but
well, you know, it's prescribed. Like you're disabled, man. I don't know what to tell
I
you.
mean it is, but it's the same drug prescribed or not.
I mean, true, but there's a difference between someone seeking out ketamine because of chronic pain and someone seeking out ketamine just because.
That's true.
I
Sorry, talk
started
again
growing a
on your
creature
end.
in my household.
I'm just upping the output a little bit.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, I'm good.
Yeah. We started growing a creature in our household.
Oh yeah?
Yeah. Do you want to see the creature?
Sure.
The second one. Hold on. Actually, I guess I'll show them both creatures. Hold on. I guess technically we're growing two creatures, four if you include us.
You're having
All right.
twins
The
then.
first is this one. Look at her. We've had this woman for a long, but like my wife mentioned it when I said we were growing a creature, so I figured I would show.
I'm seeing your videos loading up here.
And then the creature we just started growing. Phil.
Okay, I'm are you dropping that in the chat or in the
No, so I turned my camera on.
Oh, I
Uh,
see. Yeah, it's loading up on my end. Oh, I see, I see.
yes, Phyllis is our sourdough colony,
How
and
very
then we
2020 of
also have
you.
a and we also have this gremlin. So
Is that a rabbit?
you know you like it. What's up, baby?
Looked like a black and white
Was
rabbit from what I was seeing.
and I like don't know what you're talking about or like why you said yes? Okay. I didn't know that. Oh, interesting. I guess that makes sense.
Yeah, my sister and her girlfriend started a sourdough colony back during the pandemic. It was apparently the thing to do. I missed out on that particular trend.
So did I. But I don't know. My wife's mother gave us some of their sourdough as a starter. So, like before we moved. So, yeah, way before we moved. This was how long? When was Phyllis 1 given to us? Like a year ago. But her mom's gotten like really into baking. Starts selling. She does make it really good.
Phyllis won.
Yeah. I mean, we've had a fair few iterations of Phyllis.
Sure.
uh, Not the best sourdough parent. Yeah, I did kill one of them. I didn't know I wasn't supposed to give it tap water, and then it fucking just killed itself.
Yeah, yeah, they do that. Somewhat temperamental, those things.
Eh, they're okay once you understand them, but it's like, holy shit.
Yeah, it's one of the reasons I don't have plants or pets.
That's fair. It's one of the reasons I don't have children.
I can, oh yeah, 100%. I, put it this way, if I had gotten laid in the last 10 years, I would have already had the vasectomy.
You know what? Fair enough.
Shockingly,
And some,
the, huge groups of, women looking for the most attractive fat cripple they can get their hands on don't exist, so hasn't been a problem.
I, I believe in you, bro. You're the most attractive fat cripple I've ever met. What are you confused by, baby? Why are you confused? Okay. You're not even in a corner. Okay. Yeah. She's trying to do wallpaper in my office area.
I see.
Areas become the main room of the house. Because I spend my time in it and we like to be near each other, so now she also spends her time in
Excellent. Yeah, it's one of those things about being single that I realized a long time ago that, like, sure, I could probably date someone, but I am an introvert who doesn't like being around people all that much, and I'm basically fine with being single, and I would need to spend time and put effort into not being single.
it.
So
Yeah, dating is
probably
great
I'm
to
just
have.
gonna continue being single.
I, I don't know, but it worked out with you and me. But no, dating is gross.
It's not even that I object to dating. It's just that,
I
like,
do.
the options are, like, I could get on a dating app, which seems like a whole thing, or I could go and try and meet people at events. Now, I'm not someone who goes to bars. Liquor is cheaper at home, so that leaves me like D&D game nights. Um,
D&D
and
game night,
I'm
Barnes
approaching
and Noble,
30,
your
so
LCS.
I'm sure some of the people there would be vastly too young for me. And B,
I don't know
I
if you
don't
met
care that much about being
Leonardo
single.
DiCaprio. To the ceiling. Oh my god. Okay.
To the
Yeah.
window, to the wall. Sorry.
I don't think I even reached the ceiling. God damn, there's cobwebs. I don't even reach all the way up to the ceiling, baby. I need a bigger ladder than this. Yeah. My father and my grandfather, someone in my family. Yeah. Problems with being short, I guess. Like, just because I'm half a foot taller than you doesn't mean that I'm tall. I appreciate your belief.
Checking
I
in at
wish it was.
69 inches tall here. Right there with you.
Are you actually 60?
I'm 5'9", so yes.
That's really. Nice height, man.
Thanks.
You said what? You did not gotta make it go there. I heard you. He didn't, but I did, and that's what matters. So,
No, I went and looked up average heights a few years back, and I'm like, I'm super average. So I'm
yeah,
like
yeah,
2 inches shorter than the American average at 5'11", and 2 inches taller than the worldwide male average at 5'7". So I guess I can work with that.
yeah. I mean, you're super tiny, and I'm slightly below average. I'm 5'7".
I watch a few VTubers who are like apparently demographically super small. Because like Iron
Mm-hmm.
Mouse is 5'10", Giga is 5'10". I don't watch Henya, but Henya's 5 foot, or I'm sorry, they're 4'10", both of them. And then Henya's 4'7", and I'm like,
These are all names. The only one which I recognize is Iron Mouse through their relationship with.
yeah, yeah. So basically all the names I'm saying are VTubers from the same group. It's called VShojo.
Okay.
Um, but essentially they're all anime people.
Well, most VTubers are anime people.
Yes.
Yeah.
I was not familiar with VTubers until last year, because I, for a very long time, watched Ray Narvaez Jr.'s stuff. I mean, I had been watching him since he was with Achievement Hunter back like 2012-ish. And then he
Okay.
started interacting with some VTubers, so I was like, okay, what is this? What is VTubing? I don't understand. Um, and so now I watched like Iron Mouse doing the singing streams, Giga and Matara. And Matara is the one that I find interesting because she's a Ukrainian woman living in Canada who speaks Ukrainian, Russian, French, and English. And I speak English and some Russian, so the streams are sort of interesting.
Okay.
Because if someone types in chat in any of those languages, she will just respond in that language, which is good practice for me.
Mhm. I mean, apparently he speaks Russian.
Немного.
I don't know shit about Russian.
It as it turns out, it's one of the most grammatically complex languages on the planet. I did not know that when I started taking it in college, but I just
I know
sort of
that
stuck
because
through it.
a friend of mine, her name is Jen, will complain about it. She's
Yeah, it is tough, but
that,
I
that
took it for 2 years
that
in college. I needed, I think, 3 semesters of it to graduate. I took four, including a Soviet literature course, which was pretty interesting. And then I just hit day 1649 on a streak on Duolingo for like keeping up practice every day. So
good for you.
I hate that Americans are generally like reliant upon one language and feel that we should speak more. So I took 3 years of German in high school, 4 years of Russian at this point. If I'd been smart, I would have taken fucking Spanish. I live half an hour outside of DC. Like demographically, that would have been more useful. But it is nice when I get Russian customers into a job and like none of them expect anybody in the U.S. to speak Russian, so that can be fun.
Yeah, makes sense. People speak French here.
I was so proud of myself last fall. I had a Russian customer come in at Cox Farms when I was in the ticket line, and she had a problem with her order, and I was able to fix her order in Russian, and I felt so fucking proud. And then a language family came up who was like only Spanish, and I was like, shit, I need help.
Yeah, it happened.
I've got
True.
a little bit of Spanish just through like when I was in the MT, I was in an 80% Spanish speaking area, so I picked up some there. I've picked up some just by kind of generally existing in the area that I do, but
Okay.
I'm not in any way fluent. And the reason I didn't take Spanish was stupid too.
Was it 'cause everyone else was taking it?
No, no, no. I just can't roll my R's, and going into a language knowing that I had a speech impediment felt weird to me. So I went
Don't
with
you
a
have
couple
the?
languages that I could pronounce correctly.
Isn't you know what? Sure, go off, King. I guess.
Well, part of it is that I've always had a talent for accents, so uh, it actually gets me in trouble because I'll, throw a little German in or speak a little Russian, and they assume based on how clean my accent is that I'm much better at the language than I actually am. And they'll just go full bore into it, and I'll be like, no, no, sorry, slow down, please.
Still issue?
Oh, absolutely. And it's one of those things where if I could go into a more immersive environment, and speak the language regularly, I think it would be less of a problem. Like I would pick it up much quicker.
Hmm.
But at least so long as Putin's in power in Russia, I'm not going there. And a lot
Yeah.
of the former Soviet countries where a lot of people speak Russian, they don't like speaking Russian because they are former Soviet territories, which was
Yeah.
not like a good time generally.
Yeah. Fucking birds. God damn it.
Yes, you having bird problems?
Well, like birds and Slay the Spire. Birds.
Oh, I see. I see. I thought you were had like crows descending upon your house.
No, that's my wife with a hammer.
Ah, I see. For the birds or like,
You are a corvid.
hey, corvids are cool as fuck.
Yeah.
Hyper intelligent,
That's
fascinating
why I said
creatures.
my wife. That's why I said my wife was a corvid. I wouldn't insult her.
Sure, sure. No,
No,
I
I
knew a
actually we were
lot of
saying
people who were
corvids
into
are smart.
corvids when I
Like,
was studying anthropology.
yeah, we were saying corvids are smart, but you specifically are. Dumb. But I love you, baby.
All I'm saying is, she's holding a hammer. That seems like a bad way to go, but
I'm not worried about it with her.
that's the trick. They get you to drop your guard.
I've established that if I'm going to be murdered, I would prefer she be the one to murder me, so it's okay.
I mean, statistically, you're already there. I mean, almost invariably, people are murdered by people they know, just because random murders are extremely statistically uncommon.
True.
Usually, if someone's, gonna potentially go away for life, they need to have a pretty good reason for it.
Color's okay. I'm not. I don't hate this. Yeah, I'm okay with it. I think it's going to be a very dark room color. Okay, you convinced me.
What color are you going with?
What she said.
No, I just didn't catch what the actual color was.
Hunter green.
Okay, that's cool. Just don't do what my grandmother did in her bathroom. This like bright yellow, and I'm like, why would you choose this?
You're telling me you don't want a bright piss yellow bathroom?
It you had to have known the woman. She was very into pastels. In her clothing, in her decorating, which is fine. It totally worked for her, but it has never worked for me. I am a guy who prefers to dress like a cartoon character. I have the same like 5 sets of cargo pants and the same like 8 collared black polo shirts.
I know
And
ADHD is in your stream title. Where's your autism?
uh I don't I have not been diagnosed with autism. As far as
Okay,
I know, everything stems from the ADHD, but ADHD and
fair.
autism do have a lot of like comorbidities where like a lot of the behaviors are similar.
Yeah.
And to be perfectly honest, that's not even an autistic thing, that's a lazy thing where I'm like, I don't care about fashion. I have made a decision that
Okay.
I like this outfit, so I'm just gonna get a bunch of it so I don't ever have to think about it.
You know what? That's fair. That is fair.
No, honestly, my autistic friends are far more fashionable than I am. They think about it,
Yep,
they have very cool outfits, and I just wear the same thing every day.
that's okay. You can be, yeah. You be you, bro.
I I found an outfit that I determined was good enough, and I just stuck with it.
I'm fashionable sometimes. What do you mean no? What do you mean no? My fashionability is like professional. Dude,
I will wear a suit at funerals, and that's pretty much it.
I used to have to wear a suit for work.
Oh, yeah, no, couldn't do that. No,
I just,
I have worn a suit in the past 10 years like 3 times. 2 of them were funerals, one of them was a wedding.
okay. I have worn, I don't know how many suits I've worn in the past 3 years. More than that. Well, I own, okay, well, hold on. I own two overcoats and two vests and a bunch of different colors. And I mix and match because they all go with.
Sure,
So
and that's
technically, I own,
partially where I like the black polos, because they will go with anything else that I choose to wear.
yeah, I own more effective suits, but I can only have two at the exact same.
That's
I guess
fair.
I also have a gray one. So I guess technically I have three effective suits, but
I
then I
have
have
a singular black suit
okay.
with some
I
black
have
slacks. I really
I have a black, a gray, a dark blue, like a checkered one. Uh, I think checkered is the right
a
one.
la like Benny from Fallout New Vegas kind of checkered.
Hold on. Kind of.
Okay.
Um, and then a few different undershirts of different colors, or a few different like vests of basically the same colors. And I have undershirts that are white, blue, black, gray. Uh, what else? Do I have? Do I
Yeah,
just have
I'm
white,
hearing a
blue, black,
much more
gray?
stylish lineup than I have going.
It's okay. I most of the time I choose just like most of the time if I'm not going out I'm just like it's that simple. Like I work from home. If I'm not going out for the today and I don't have a meeting or anything, I'm waking up and I'm wearing the exact same thing that I went to bed in, which most of the time is not much at all.
I definitely on days that I'm not going out have to remember to like swap clothes. Like I try and put effort into not wearing the same thing for like multiple days in a row, uh, because I know that if left to my own devices, that will occasionally happen.
Uh-huh.
So I'm like, okay, new day, need to shower and swap clothes. Need to
Bro gets
be a human
sleepy.
being.
Oh, that's okay. I I simply don't really wear clothing to bed, and if I'm not going out, I'm not wearing clothing unless it's cold. Like it's that simple. Like
I
in the winter.
was a kid who slept naked, for sure.
Mhm.
But after getting injured, I wound up sleeping in common areas in the house pretty regularly. So
Okay.
I switched to pajamas, obviously, and that's sort of carried through to now. Um, where like I basically will be in at least pajama pants at any given
Yeah.
time. And because I have
As a
housemates, I
kid,
tend to throw a shirt on just because that seems polite.
oh yeah. As a kid, I actually always slept with pajamas, and then I didn't start sleeping naked until I got with my wife. Started like sleeping together.
That's fair. I mean, hell, that's just efficient, less to do.
True. What do you mean that's not true, baby? No, I did not start sleeping naked until you were like, but think about how comfortable it is. Yeah, after we got together. I don't. We had times together. We did not live together at that time, though. That is true.
You had at the very least met.
Yes, this is factual. Might be accurate. I don't remember. True. Anyways, how's almost being midlife?
Oh, um, to be honest, I know a lot of people turn 30 and they're like, "Oh no, I'm leaving my 20s." My 20s have kind of sucked. So like,
Oh
I'm
shit.
looking forward to shit. Like, I will be less crippled going into my 30s than I have been for most of my 20s, so that's cool.
Oh, that's nice.
It's my hope that I will eventually be not crippled in my 30s, but we'll see how that works out.
I wish you the best of luck in uncrippling yourself.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, ketamine's been a huge step forward in that direction. We had been, like a year and a half of nothing really working. They'd tried like lidocaine injections in my back. They'd, inject the stuff in my leg. All kinds of shit that just never really took. And the ketamine was the
Okay.
first thing that really provided any relief. And because I probably have a mutated MC1R gene, which is otherwise known as the redhead gene, that makes
Okay.
anesthesia less effective.
Yeah.
I'm on a huge dose in comparison. Um, like I go to a place up in Baltimore, and I've looked at more local places and talked to them, and I'm like, "This is the dose I'm on." They're like, "Yeah, we won't give you that dose. Like that's not a thing we will do. That's above our
Crazy.
maximum." And I'm like, "But that's the dose that works."
Yeah, that's insane.
Yeah, I did the math one time. Because I was like, what? I know that ketamine's a horse tranquilizer. I'm like, what amount of ketamine do you use to knock out a horse for surgery? And I am
Yeah.
on double that amount by weight over the course of 3 hours. So it was
Okay.
originally a 4 hour infusion, and then they accidentally tried to kill me one time.
That's unlucky.
Yeah, well, shit happens. Basically, one of the techs who doesn't work there anymore, uh, accidentally went and not for this reason even, just moved on professionally. Um, put in, when you're like want to put something in the microwave for 4 minutes and you accidentally hit 40 seconds.
Yeah.
It was one of those. Uh, so instead of 4 hours, I wound up on there for like half that time.
Okay,
And so they pushed 250 milligrams of ketamine into me in an hour, uh,
that's
which was
impressive.
supposed to be administered over the course of 2 hours. And they were like, well, his breathing's not depressed, so
Worked
probably
out.
he's fine. And this is another thing with me and ketamine is like, it's a party drug to a lot of people. They'll, trip, they'll see things, they'll hear things, whatever. And I've never done that.
Uh huh.
And so they pushed this huge dose on me and then realized it was a problem, stopped it for an hour, and then put the rest of the dose in as normal. And when I finally woke up, the nurse who had been attending to me for like 5 years at this point was like, so did you finally trip? And I was like, nope, just slept really hard.
Fair enough.
And she's like, okay, I guess that's just never going to happen for you. That's fine. The tripping isn't the important part of the treatment. It just is the ketamine helps, reset the nerves a bit. So,
Hmm.
well, honestly, ketamine is mostly used these days as a treatment for depression or PTSD. It is valuable for pain, but it's not the thing that it's primarily used for. Supposedly, my depression got better after I started using ketamine, but I wasn't really paying attention to my depression at the time. I had just kind of been sitting around for a couple of years, which,
Yeah,
sitting around
totally
staring at a
hurt.
wall crippled for a couple of years would depress pretty much anyone.
Yeah.
But supposedly I was, generally more pleasant and tolerable to be around after that. So, hooray for that.
Hooray for you.
Yeah, my mother, who had to deal with me all the time in that state, was like, yeah, you're better. Like, okay, take your word for it.
Did your mom do ketamine?
No, she hasn't ever had any need
No,
to.
my wife's mother. It's okay. I would also have pain and depression with your sibling. What are we wowing? Yeah, I know your mom was chronically ill,
Hey, cheers.
and it's caused by you. Unlucky. How did you start? Oh, your pregnant. Your pregnancy. Yeah.
Oh, that can absolutely do it. Yeah.
Imagine having lupus from pregnancy.
Jesus.
Crazy.
Honestly, the one that a lot of people don't know that can get you during
Oh,
pregnancy
just
is
fibromyalgia.
osteoporosis because uh, pregnancy is basically a balance where the child is a parasite. They're trying
Yeah.
to gain as many nutrients as they can during the pregnancy to, thrive during life. And human evolution has, figured out that the woman needs to sort of resist that during the pregnancy so that if they have other children, they're not putting all their eggs in one basket, biologically speaking.
Yeah.
So, uh, particularly demanding pregnancies, the baby can basically leach a bunch of calcium out of the bones, and like teeth can fall out. Like my mother is a NICU nurse, so I've heard a lot of these.
Okay.
Um, but yeah, I mean, pregnancy is really fucking rough on the human body, or can be.
Yeah, pregnancy is crazy.
Well,
That's why
and
I'm never gonna get pregnant.
we also evolutionarily made it much, much tougher for women when we got smart because our brains got larger.
Yeah.
So the demands placed on the birth canal became significantly greater as
Hmm.
the human head got larger in gestation. So that's where like the mortality rate among humans is significantly greater than a lot of other primates just because we're bipedal and we are smarter and have larger heads, which
Hmm.
causes the pregnancies to be much rougher.
Yeah.
were also completely fucking useless when born for like a while, as
Yeah,
opposed to, horses just kind of fall out and can wander around.
a lot of animals can do that.
Yeah.
Humans are irregular in the fact that we're just useless as babies.
Yes, it is a side effect of getting smarter. Um, and that's where the theory goes that intelligence is not an endpoint for evolution, it's mostly a random mutation that became extremely valuable, just in adaptability.
Hmm.
Um, but it was the mutation that let us, take over the world effectively.
Yeah, I mean most things are random mutations.
Well, it was a mix of a random mutation and the fact that once we figured out fire, we were capable of intaking a lot more meat safely, which gave us a great deal of protein that our bodies basically had nothing to do with
Hmm.
until it started growing our brains over time.
Except my brain.
Well,
Yeah,
you get a weird one every generation or so.
dark. Yeah, it'll look good. Dude.
That's the statistic that's wild to me, is like, if you compare human DNA and chimpanzee DNA, we are 98% identical. The differences
Yeah,
between us and chimpanzees is 2%.
yeah. I mean bananas are 50%.
Yeah,
So
it's one of those things where like you realize that all life on Earth goes back to a single organism, and that
yeah,
one random mutation that we then all split off from.
yeah. I've been enjoying a lot of like Lindsay Nicole.
Oh yeah, I absolutely watched Lindsay Nicole. Great, great content. Her Life on Earth series is really good.
Yeah, that we know of.
Yeah, I
The
never
main
specialized
biologist.
in zooarchaeology, but I took a couple of classes that were very, very interesting. It is a
I think you
little
have to
fun
know
to know that we
where I
still
live.
live with dinosaurs technically. They're just all birds.
True. You're a bird, I think.
Yeah, all the only dinosaurs that survived the mass extinction with the meteor were the avian dinosaurs, but we do still have them.
Okay. But baby, can you prove to me that James here or whatever, Jeremy, it was a J, is not a dinosaur? Because he has some gasteropod as his profile. He might be on ketamine. Like, he could be a gasteropod that found ketamine and has been tripping balls for years. I'll never know. Is this an accurate analysis? Well, I'm asking him now. I've been unmuted. He wasn't responding to me at all.
Yeah, it's true. Um, but no, I mean the whole idea of like as fun as it would be for some dinosaurs to survive the extinction, like they did. It was just the small ones that could. A
Yeah,
lot of what we lost were the megafauna.
yeah,
And I mean, as far as we know, we're still alive at the same time as the largest creature that's ever lived on Earth, which is the blue whale. Like
yep,
we have yet to find any uh pre-existing megafauna that was larger than the blue whale. And whale evolution is always fascinating to me too, in that, life evolved in the sea. Pachycetus went up on land and then was like, nah, fuck this, and went back in the ocean, and that evolved into a whale.
yeah. Honestly, respectable. I too don't fuck with the land. I'm
Depends on
not.
the land for me. Deciduous forest, I'm down. Desert, fuck that shit. Tundra, I can cope with. Taiga, sure. Uh, anything hot, I'm good. Rainforest, I'll
Prairie.
pass. Now, granted, I am also the kind of person that just radiates heat.
What are you gonna respond to the prairie question or not?
I'm sorry, I missed the prairie question. Prairie, it's generally too dry for me. But
See,
I would be less opposed to prairie than I would to desert or rainforest.
this further supports my theory he's a gastropod.
Yeah, well, look, I'm
That
just not sober enough to be fine with that.
that's no fun.
But yeah, I always, even as a child, I always radiated heat, and then I got crippled, which made me a little fat. So now I both produce and retain heat. So any kind of hot environment, I'm like, absolutely not.
Fair enough. I am definitely the colder one out of me and my wife.
Oh, my sister is skinny and has poor circulation. So for us to be in the same house is she's like either I'm comfortable and she's under a blanket or I'm sweating and she's comfortable.
It happens. I just like kind of sit there and I always have a blanket. That's my secret.
Sure. That's my thing I will say is like I do sympathize with people that get cold easily, but at some point you can put on another layer. If I keep taking layers off, at some point it becomes illegal. Like,
Yeah, my statement has always been the reason why we moved from somewhere hot to cold is because yeah, I can always take off more layers, but the heat in Arizona made me want to take off my skin.
yeah, Phoenix existing is just a monument to man's like hubris. Don't build a fucking
And
city
air
in the desert.
conditioning. That is also true.
I mean, Vegas is worse, but like Phoenix is terrible.
Yeah. Was it is suboptimal. Yeah.
And the wild thing to me, to stray into politics, is how long it took for Arizona to get on the solar wagon. I'm like, you have so much fucking sun. You would never need to use like nuclear or coal plants. Just get the solar panels up.
Yeah.
Like I get it for the Pacific Northwest. Like yeah, it's raining all of the time. Get what wind and solar you can, but also you're gonna be reliant on other sources of energy.
Yeah. There's so much sun all the time.
That was God. I was seeing some guy who got arrested in Phoenix, who literally was like left on the ground for a moment and fucking cooked.
Yeah.
Like
It
it
hurts.
is.
You don't touch the sidewalk or like any of the pavement
I know
during the
it's an issue
winter
for
or
pet
during the
owners
summer.
too. Like you can't take like dogs out for walks at certain times because it will literally burn them.
Yeah. There's heat advisories like yeah. What's crazy? Uh huh. Hey, baby, not all children do that.
Sorry, not all children do what now?
Try to run away from their parents.
I will say, growing up in the 90s and early 2000s, there was always some judgment at those people that kept their kids on leashes. As an
Yeah,
adult, I'm like, fucking respect. You know that your kid's gonna run away, and you are maintaining control over that child. Well done.
I think that it really depends on the child and the situation. What you buy a lease like that, there's too much variable there for me to give a general answer or formulate a genuine opinion. Just so much of life is contextual. With that you're a child of pain. Okay. Are you enjoying walling the paper? I warned you,
What, that doing wallpaper sucks? Because, yes.
and that it. Yeah, pretty much.
It could be worse. If you've ever had to use grout for tile, like, that's awful.
I have had the grout tile.
Yeah. It's just an unpleasant process.
Yeah, it makes me grouchy.
Thank you. I needed that.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Oh, I hate the like squish noise of that. Probably not great. Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
No, I'm living in a house that my grandparents bought in the late 60s, and I am acutely aware that if I were to peel back a couple layers of paint, there's almost certainly leaded paint in the walls.
Yeah. I
But
was
I
gonna
know
ask
it's
how it's
underpaint
lead.
that's new enough that it doesn't have lead in it.
Yeah, I was about to ask how the lead is.
Yeah, so I definitely was exposed to lead in this house, but not through the wallpaper or the paint. There was a Garfield mug that was made in 1979. There was a series of them, and the paint in those was leaded. And I didn't find that out until I used one to drink out of as a child for my entire childhood. So I
Enjoy.
definitely did consume some lead. Fortunately, not a ton, but it for sure happened.
Did you hear my wife?
No, I'm sorry, I missed that.
I don't know if you still might have heard it. Still might not have heard you. You were
Yeah,
led
sorry, your
on.
mic's still low
It's,
on your end.
it's okay. Unfortunately, you were led on.
Oh, I see, I see.
Yeah. True.
Yeah, that was just one of those stories that didn't come out until I was, older teenager by that time.
Yeah.
Um, I read some story about, oh, these Garfield mugs that had lead in them, and I looked at them like, I drank out of that cup. And all my cousins also, like, I sent it to my cousins, and they were like, yep, cool, we all drank out of that. That's fine.
Well, you have lead poisoning.
I mean, the thing about lead poisoning is it's fairly insidious, but you do need to get, like, some built up. Like, heavy metal poisoning can be really, really bad,
It takes time.
but only
Yeah.
if you get a fair amount in you. And so,
Yeah.
fortunately, I wasn't experiencing it, like, in a water supply. It
Okay.
was a pretty finite amount on a cup. So, I didn't have some of the associated problems with that. And the particularly nasty one is that, like, lead will leach into your bones, and back to osteoporosis. Uh, I think I'm back.
Yeah.
Um, Older individuals who experience osteoporosis can then have the lead leach out of their bones and have a second exposure to lead later in life.
Mhm.
Uh, so I don't think I'm in that camp. I think I'm okay on that front, but yeah, for sure, lead was used far too liberally in many things. I mean, gasoline among them. If you look at the correlation between violence in the United States and the banning of leaded gasoline, the lines are pretty much identical. Like violence peaks in the U.S. in 1980 and has been on basically a solid downward trend since then. And leaded gasoline was banned nationally in 1986, but had been started to be phased out a little before that.
Interesting.
And so the theory goes that, like, basically it was particularly bad in inner cities where a bunch of cars were in close proximity.
Mhm. That's interesting. Kind of
Yeah,
cool.
the real kicker is that the guy who invented leaded gasoline knew
Uh
that it
huh.
was bad, but it was cheaper to do it that way than another way, so he went with that. Like, motherfucker. Same guy, incidentally, who invented Freon, which was the thing that punched a hole in the ozone layer back in the 80s.
Yep. I mean, I'm sure he made enough money that he doesn't care.
I'm pretty sure he's dead, so at this point, I don't think he cares either way, but
True.
to be fair, in fairness to him, the leaded gasoline could have been seen coming. Like, he had a way to know that that would be a problem. The dissolution of the ozone layer due to Freon was something that,
No,
like, there was
that was
really no way to know would happen.
yeah. It's not really on on creator there.
So I'll happily give him shit over the leaded gasoline, but less so on the Freon.
Yeah.
It's
I don't
funny.
know.
You know DuPont Chemical Company?
Yeah.
The reason that we all have Teflon in our blood?
Yeah.
I do actually pretty regularly interact with an individual of the DuPont family at one of my jobs. Very, very kind man. And I look at him sometimes and go, "Your family's the reason I have Teflon in my blood." I've never said it to him, but like,
Why not?
I mean, he's a nice guy. He's, there to relax. I'm not looking to start shit. But I definitely the story on that's fascinating too, where they realized that it was in the water supply back in the 60s and they wanted to get a test candidate like to test the effect of what Teflon in the blood was doing to people and they
Hmm.
couldn't. Like they wanted a base candidate that hadn't been exposed
But
to it
everyone has Teflon.
and everyone on the planet at that point had some Teflon in their blood. And so the only way that they were able to get a control group was they had some blood that had been taken from soldiers back during the Korean War prior to the exposure, and they used that as the test case.
That's insane.
Yeah. And it's still a little unclear what it does. In low levels, it doesn't do a ton, but in higher levels, I know like it can make vaccines ineffective. Um, like the vaccine just doesn't attach to the cells. So it is interesting what PFAS can do, uh, but there were definitely unintended side effects of that in the 50s when they were like just pumping
Nothing
it
good so
out.
far.
And I mean, humans basically always do that. They discover a new thing and they're like, let's use this without figuring out all of the harm it can do first.
Yeah.
And you get stories like the Radium Girls in New Jersey. Um, you get tons and tons of cobblers, like shoemakers,
Yeah.
who died of radiation because they would just use X-rays to figure out your shoe size, and because those guys were doing it all fucking day, they got very serious radiation exposure.
Hmm.
I always think about that when go in to get like a dental X-ray and you're in the lead vest and everybody goes behind a thing. I'm like, At least we are more aware now of the potential dangers. I always wonder what the thing's gonna be that we look back on doing today, and it's like, how did we allow this to happen? I suspect sugared soda is gonna be up there. Like, just letting kids drink those constantly is probably really bad.
Probably.
In the same way that we look back at like Coca-Cola in the 20s and you're like, you were giving kids what now? That to me was one of the greatest bait and switches Coca-Cola ever pulled was like, oh yeah, we got the cocaine out of the Coca-Cola, we just put caffeine in there. It does all the same things, but you know, it's not cocaine.
True.
That's also wild if you go back to like the world of Victorian medicine where they would like, oh, I have a long-standing cough. Like, well, yeah, just use this elixir that has cocaine and opium in it. You'll feel fine. Actually, you won't feel much of anything.
It was effective.
I mean, yeah, but the dosages were kind of the problem. Especially because all that shit you could just buy. Like, there was no prescription you needed to worry about.
I, I didn't say it was a good thing. I just said it was effective.
It certainly was.
They wanted to not feel this thing, and it made them not feel this.
Yep. Laudanum also was extremely common at the time.
I don't actually know what that is.
It's very similar to heroin. Um, but you could get it in liquid form, and you know a couple drops of it were prescribed, and you know you'd get a whole bottle, so people would do a couple drops, and then a couple more, and then a couple more, and that was generally how addiction went at the time,
Yeah.
particularly for women of higher station who were basically you know socially supposed to be there and look pretty and not really do anything.
Hmm.
Um, Drug addiction was a quick way to escape that in a lot of their cases.
Yeah.
So you know they'd be like, "Doctor, I am what we would medically say is depressed now," and the doctor would be like, "Oh yeah, just have a little laudanum," and they gave them a lot of laudanum.
Yeah. Makes your wallpapering is looking pretty good. This
Yeah, that was
wrinkles.
actually I think that came up in what was the movie with Benedict Cumberbatch a few years back, The Power of the Dog, where Kirsten Dunst's character would just sit around and you know drink and do some laudanum. That was the other thing too, was the mixing of drugs at the time was insane. Be like, yeah,
Yeah.
have a few benzos and some alcohol. That'll be fine. I have literally done
Yeah.
CPR on people who mixed those things and fucking died.
I believe it. It it's kind of scary how people how just uneducated like we just didn't know anything what it
Oh
what it
yeah,
really comes down to.
and the things you can do with even over the counter medications are very simple. And like obviously you get the packet at the pharmacy when you fill a prescription that's like, hey, don't drink alcohol or mix this with anything else. And people are like, oh yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
Um, and people will just very relaxedly do those things and end up killing themselves unintentionally.
Yeah. I mean, you said you worked. I don't remember what you said.
I was an EMT.
You're EMT.
Yeah. That case in particular was a woman who had, you know, had chronic pain and was on these things and just went out back to have a drink and never came back in.
Yeah.
And God, you
It's
always felt bad, but the stupid questions you'd get sometimes. We were sitting there doing fucking CPR on her, and her husband's like, "Is she gonna be okay?" It's like, probably not, man.
I mean, yeah, but you don't want to tell them
I
that.
no, I think the actual response was, "We're doing everything we can, sir." But like,
Yeah, I mean that's the professional response. Is we're doing everything we can.
yeah, I mean, we were all very careful to be professional about it, but and I knew what the guy meant, but like, yeah, probably not.
Yeah,
The fact that we're here is already a bad sign.
true.
I also remember
Uh,
we had a woman die after a very long term like cystic fibrosis.
hmm
Um, and we're in there, we're doing CPR on her, and the husband's standing around, and we're doing it for like 45 minutes. Uh,
hmm
and as I kind of took in the house over time, I was like, okay, there are a bunch of unsecured firearms sitting around. I really hope that the guy has had time to come to terms with this, because if he hasn't, this may be a problem. And I learned later that, like, yeah, it was a long time coming. They were pretty much expecting it, but I was like, it's a little sketchy.
Yeah,
Could be worse. The very
understandable.
first time I ever did CPR, we get called to a local trailer park, and I get there, and we walk inside, and this guy is like 67, 350 pounds, give or take, and he is wearing socks.
Okay.
Just
Is that
socks.
okay?
And I had that thought that you get sometimes as a volunteer EMT, looking at this extremely naked man on the floor at
hmm
1 a.m. And I was like,
Yeah,
I volunteer for this.
yeah.
And then I got to work. And usually doing CPR, you'll break ribs, just bouncing up and down on someone's chest. This guy was big enough that we did not.
Yeah.
And it was another one where like you just go for as long as you can. We were there for like 45 minutes. And we were in this little trailer, and the guy had fallen between his bed and like the TV on the chest of drawers.
hmm
And I was sitting there bouncing up and down on this guy's chest, and the TV, it was like an old CRT, was just waving back and forth over me. I'm like, this fucking thing's gonna fall on my head. And the guy, he was one of those that like I felt bad laughing afterwards,
hmm
but fucking every time I bounced down on his chest, it fucking jumped.
Unlucky.
I just, the guy was, I mean, between the size of his dick and the size of his gut, that dude had like an okay life. But
Fair enough.
it was, I mean, it was definitely funny in the aftermath, but I did feel bad.
I mean, yeah, that'll happen.
I mean, honestly, that guy was in a pretty ideal situation. Like, he collapsed in front of his niece, who was there to A, call 911 and B, like, do CPR until we got there.
hmm
But his case was one of those where, like, there are a lot of old people and there are a lot of fat people. There are not a lot of old fat people.
Yeah.
Um, it's just kind of a self-selecting group where the bigger you are, the less likely you are to live longer.
hmm
And I think he was just one of those. But
Makes sense. No, I work in like insurance, which I have my word for America's insurance, but
yeah,
uh, yeah, I I get to get intimate with prescription medication,
sorry, I'm
and young
losing you a little bit.
people. I get to get intimate with prescription medications and disabled people and old people everywhere
Gotcha.
in between. Um, but no, I mean, I've had like a number of phone calls that are like, "Oh yeah, No, they died from a drug overdose. Or oh yeah, my husband is no longer available. How come? Well, here we actually are going to be sending in the death certificate here. He shot himself. As you know, he's a veteran because he was a veteran, and he shot himself in the head with a 50 caliber rifle. We actually have a
Jesus.
yeah, and he's like, we actually thank you guys for the home insurance as well because they're covering repairing the walls after the bullet hole is left in it. Like okay,
I mean, fuck the bullet hole. You're cleaning brains out the fucking carpet at that point. Jesus.
yeah.
I mean, I've seen one or two of
The
those,
insurance
but
covered it.
they didn't really need us because we walked in and was like, well, he's fucking dead. What do you want us to do?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Revive him. You telling me you don't have like revivify? Come on,
Yeah,
bro.
man, it's like you called an EMT. I think you needed a coroner. Like,
It happens.
I get it, but like, especially in the cases where like someone would go to sleep and wake up dead. Like, sure, call an EMT. You don't know how long they've been gone for. Maybe there's something that can be done, but in the cases where it's like, yeah, they swallowed a shotgun, it's like, well, that they made sure it was going to be effective, so we are not useful here.
Yeah, I think it's something like 99% effective if you swallow a shotgun. I don't actually know the.
It depends on the type of shot you're using, but yeah, generally. I
Yeah,
mean that's the thing where like people talk about gun violence numbers, and I was looking at a study of the quote unquote gun violence that occurred in a given year, and something
I mean
like
a lot of it is
61% of it was
self-harm.
suicides.
Yeah,
And like I get where if you want to argue, if you want to make the argument that it's too effective, where like people who failed to commit suicide often talk about regretting their attempts later. And if you want to make the
but
argument that guns are too effective, like that's one argument, but then to argue it as gun violence feels disingenuous.
yeah, I mean suicide is not gun violence, and would you consider it such, my love? I feel like violence and self-harm are different.
I mean, it's self violence, which is a fair thing, but when you're talking about something like gun violence, what you're picturing is not that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, gun
So if you
violence
wanted to
is
talk
only.
about, prevention of suicide with firearms, sure, that's a perfectly reasonable and legitimate topic. But when people are going off about gun violence and 61% of the numbers are suicide, it's like, well, what are we talking about?
I mean, there's a number of issues. I do think that gun regulation probably needs to be implemented in some way, but the country is also so far gone that it's like, how do you do that?
Well, here's the thing, right? Is people talk about like universal background checks, and like I theoretically have no objection depending on the implementation. Because if you want to say, hey, we need to do universal background checks, continuing to use the NICS system that the FBI has set up, that's a completely closed system that you can't
That's
see
fine.
inside.
Yeah, that's fine. As long as you don't get to see inside of it, I think that's okay.
Well, here's why I have a problem with it is I know for a fact that there was someone who wound up on the prohibited persons list by mistake a number of years ago, and
Hmm.
it took them suing both the ATF and the FBI to get removed from it. Whereas if you have an open system that like you can basically put in like someone's details for a background check and it goes, "Hey, this is clean," and you can do a private sale from that point, that I would have no objection to. But a lot of time it winds up costing people a lot more if the checks are implemented in the way that they often are. And there are arguments to be made on both sides, but basically, to my mind, if you've got the Second Amendment written into law, then charging people more to get or access guns
Hmm.
is, in my mind, very similar to a poll tax. Like, it's not, to me, acceptable to charge people to exercise rights that are enshrined under the law.
That's
So, if you wanted to say, like, hey, everybody who wants to have a gun needs training, I would be okay with that if you
that
had
training is
that
provided for
training
free.
free, paid for by the taxpayer, and
Hmm.
available regularly to everybody who wanted to access it.
Yeah, I think that's cool.
So I am broadly of the opinion that it's okay if you want to regulate certain things, as long as it does not become just another way to keep poor people from owning guns.
Yeah, that's reasonable.
So, I have a lot of thoughts on that. I've done, papers on gun violence. I studied criminology before I studied anthropology, so I find that a
Okay.
lot of what people are complaining about, they it comes down to people not understanding the root cause of the problems. Where they go, hey,
Hmm.
we want to end gun violence, and it's like, well, do you want to end gun violence or do you want to end violence? Because gun violence is just the tool that you use to commit the crime, not necessarily a thing in and of itself. Because
Yeah.
if people really wanted to end gun violence, what they would need to do is invest in social programs, invest in education, make people less poor, less poorly educated, and over time that reduces crime because you have fewer desperate people that are willing to engage in that sort of thing.
Hmm.
But the, broadly billionaire owner class in the country doesn't want to do that. They prefer to have people existing paycheck to paycheck on the brink of starvation
Yeah,
because
it's
that means
easy.
they don't have time to figure out an effective way to resist, you know,
Yeah.
oligarchy.
Hmm.
And so the real answer to those problems is almost invariably social programs, mental health programs, and wait 20 years because
Yeah.
that shit takes time to work, basically. And I understand people that want an easy answer and there just isn't one. Like, okay, hypothetically, you make all the guns go poof, you're going to have a serious uptick in stabbings because the root
Yeah.
problem isn't gone.
Like the rate of violence is going to be violence is a means for individuals that are desperate to exert whatever it is that they think. Yeah. Whatever
Either
they
exert control
going
or
to
attempt
do.
to wrest control of something else from someone.
Yeah. And so you're just not going to be able to fix that unless you can give people a reason to be less desperate.
Exactly. And that's where, like, I'm not opposed to people who want to look at, gun regulation, but I think the implementation is very important, and if you're going to do that, be focused on the root cause of the problem, not the tool that's used to enact it.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And I understand why people focus on the guns because it's basically the answer is easier if you pretend that the root cause isn't a thing. Like, if we could just get rid of the guns, it would fix everything. It's like, well, no, that just means you go back to might is right, and the physically strongest person can do whatever they want with violence. Whereas guns give you a far more even playing field for the disabled, for women, for whatever,
Hmm.
um, or even for, smaller guys. Whereas without it, you're then left to a physical fight where the strongest, largest person with the greatest reach tends to win out.
Yeah, reach training.
Yeah.
Surprise too, I suppose.
And that's where I consider, guns to be an excellent tool for self-defense, I mean, historically, they've been used to, protect oneself from tyrannical governments.
Hmm.
I mean, hell, have you heard of Simo Häyhä? He was a
Uh,
Finnish sniper in the Second World War.
okay.
otherwise known as the White Death.
I have heard of that.
Yes. So he took an unscoped Mosin Nagant and was such an effective sniper against the Russians. He killed about 700 people with a Finnish Mosin Nagant and about 500 more with a submachine gun he carried. This man individually was such an effective counter to Russian troops at the time that they literally bombed acres of forest just trying to get him.
Hmm.
And this was with a bolt action rifle and a little submachine gun.
Yeah,
And so that is where I look at like private ownership of firearms as being a deterrent to tyrannical government.
makes
Uh,
sense.
Now, I think the unfortunate thing currently in the U.S. is that a lot of people who talk about owning guns to resist a tyrannical government are really, unfortunately, on board with a lot of the tyranny going on at the moment.
Yeah, that is
But we
definitely
also
the.
saw something like 7 million new gun owners in 2020 in response to people figuring out that the police are in no way obliged to help them
Yeah.
and violently putting down protests. So it's a much less clean line than it used to be as far as who owns guns in the country.
Hmm.
You also saw a lot of Asian Americans arming themselves in that time just because you had government officials going on about the China virus, which led to a huge uptick in anti-Asian hate crimes.
Yeah.
And I mean that's even settled in a Supreme Court decision called Castle Rock v. Gonzalez that states that the police have no obligation to help you as a
Hmm.
citizen. Like, so at that point, I am with that in the law. Basically, I'm much more inclined to say that people should be able to arm themselves however they see fit. But I've always been kind of on that train of like I'm firmly in of the belief that gay people should be able to defend their homegrown marijuana with whatever guns they would like,
Yeah.
because my political leaning has always been leave people alone. Just they're fine. It doesn't. It's not hurting you. It's fine.
Makes sense.
I mean, I
My.
think so, but then some people are like, no, we gotta stop the gays from doing gay. And I'm like, but why though? And they're like, it's bad. And I'm like, yeah, but who's it hurting? They're like, it's bad. And I'm like, okay, that's the end of that conversation.
I mean, why is it bad? Is then my question.
Well,
Is.
exactly. And that's my thing. I have absolutely no objection to someone going, I can't do X because of my religion.
Uh huh.
But then they go, you can't do X because of my religion. I'm like, you can get the fuck out of here.
Yeah. It's people are entitled to do their own thing,
I mean, that's my
and
thing. I feel like if I was unable to understand why taxes are important, I probably would have become a libertarian. But I do understand the value of taxes, so I can't, put myself in that group.
uh huh.
But I'm very much on the leave people alone and try and help them socially. Like, I think FDR was a generally phenomenal president for implementing the New Deal and ensuring that people had jobs during the Great Depression. Now, do I like the fact that he interned Japanese and German Americans in concentration camps? Nope, not cool with that. But I think his social programs were a huge step forward for the country.
Who do you think is
And
the worst
they,
president in your opinion?
what's that?
Who do you think is the worst president in the past in your opinion?
Worst president in the United States, in U.S. history?
Yeah.
Probably, I mean, don't get me wrong, Trump's going for it, but he's currently being blocked by the courts enough that it hasn't gotten there yet.
Yeah, we'll give that another 3 2 3 years, and then
Yeah,
we'll get.
yeah. Like depending on where it goes, it could definitely get there, given that ICE is doing Gestapo things these days and disappearing people.
Uh huh.
Uh, but we haven't gotten to the kind of damage that presidents like Andrew Jackson and Herbert Hoover did.
Hmm.
Because you got to remember, like Ulysses S. Grant more or less wiped out the KKK, like got rid of them, and Herbert Hoover was among the forces that brought them back.
Yeah.
including being so friendly to them as to have Birth of a Nation played in the White House, which, if you're not familiar with it, is like hardcore white supremacist propaganda that
Okay.
lionizes the KKK.
I did not actually know that. My wife votes President Nixon.
Sorry, my mic cut out. Yes, Nixon was bad individually, but honestly, the damage that was done by Nixon was broadly after his time in office because Nixon did a bad thing in election interference for the Watergate scandal, but he would have basically been removed from office had he not resigned. Um, the real damage was when Republicans figured out that the news reporting honestly about what Nixon had done was what forced their guy out, and then pushed Roger Ailes to go on and make Fox News, which caused far more damage in the long run.
Yeah.
Nixon was bad. Honestly, I would put Reagan ahead of Nixon as far as bad presidents, just because his economic policies were disastrous.
Reagan is in my top of yeah.
Reagan, just because of the destruction of unions and the serious austerity policies that destroyed a lot of the social programs that FDR's New Deal had put in, um,
Yeah.
and the whole like fantasy economics, the idea of trickle down, which just doesn't work if you have companies that can monopolize things and hold on to all that money and not put it back into the economy. It was always kind of a fantasy. So Reagan is up there for me. Um, but like Herbert Hoover was such a virulent racist even in the time he was in. Like there are people where you can go, oh, they were a product of their time. Hoover wasn't even that. Like he was vastly worse than most of his contemporaries.
Which is crazy.
Yeah, like in the 20s. Like so he is up there for worst presidents for me. Jackson remains on that list for me primarily because of the Trail of Tears, because
Yeah.
when he was told by the Supreme Court that he couldn't do it, he responded, the Supreme Court has made their decision, now let them enforce it. So just trampling all over checks and balances in a way that looks very familiar in the modern day.
Yeah.
Um, so I think that's gonna be kind of the line that Trump winds up on with just ignoring checks and balances. Whereas Hoover was his whole other thing. Reagan just had disastrous economic policies as well as drug policies. Nixon actually, to your wife's point, I actually would say Nixon, for his drug policies, was up there. Because a
Oh
Nixon staffer admitted long after the time that they had intentionally made cocaine and marijuana like significantly higher scheduled than they needed to, because the stereotype at the time was that hippies smoked weed and hippies were anti-war. So if you could
yeah.
prevent them from voting, that was better for Republicans. And that black people used crack. So which wasn't untrue, but partially because the CIA was fucking supplying them.
Yeah.
Um, so Nixon's policies and the fact that marijuana remains a Schedule One drug at the federal level uh,
Which is so
can be
crazy.
directly traced back to Nixon, which is fucking insane.
Yeah.
Especially when you look at like heroin is Schedule Two,
Yeah.
like, and we're calling weed Schedule One. Like, okay, the Dare program, even like Nancy Reagan's Just Say No, leading into the Dare program was one of those things that like I know people who went through the Dare program and then tried weed, and then they were like, oh, the harder drugs must also be fine because they clearly were fucking lying about what weed did.
Yeah. Which was so counterproductive.
It was incredibly so.
Your mole? Oh, your wall. Yeah, the wall's looking good.
Nice.
The first panel is down. Almost. Like 90, 80. I mean, proportion wise, probably like harder.
I will say, on my list of bad presidents, I always feel a need to include Jimmy Carter, and that always makes me feel bad because Jimmy Carter was such a genuinely good human being that he was broadly unfit to be president. There are a lot of like very difficult, nuanced decisions
Hmm.
that if you want to be a good person, you just kind of can't make, which made Carter's foreign policy fairly weak.
I'm not super familiar with Carter's form.
Uh, you could read up on it, but it was basically very limited in that he was unwilling to respond uh, in ways that, I mean, the country historically would have, uh, in order to protect Americans and American interests. And I'm not someone who likes any of the presidents surrounding him, and I think that Jimmy Carter was genuinely such a good human being. Um, if you don't know his time after office, he went and basically almost entirely eradicated something called guinea worm, which is a parasite in Africa that's waterborne. And
Yeah, named after its origin in the beginning.
yeah, which basically the U.S. was never worried about because it wasn't a U.S. problem. And Jimmy Carter is on the very short list of people that I consider good Christians. As someone who was
Oh,
raised Catholic and left the church at 16,
that's
Jimmy
fair.
Carter walked the walk. He went and did that. He built homes with Habitat for Humanity into his fucking 90s. Like, he fell over at 96 and smashed up his face and had a huge bruise all over it. And there were pictures of him the next day back building houses again.
Yeah, that's
Like, an incredible humanitarian and a good man, but just not a great president.
yeah. Now, as for your statement earlier about good Christians, I feel like if people read their source material, there would there's a reason why because there's someone that was originally raised Christian. There's a reason why deconstructing the book leads so many people leaving the faith and like actually reading the Bible.
Oh, very much so. I mean, that was a strong push for me to get out. Um, and I mean, like, the problem is Abrahamic religions, if nothing else, are all pretty inherently misogynistic. Um,
Yeah.
I mean, Timothy chapter 2 verse 12, I do not permit a woman to teach or exercise authority over a man, rather she is to remain silent. And I
Hmm.
brought this up to someone who was trying to like evangelize to me, and they were like, "That's so offensive." I'm like, "I agree. That's why I left." Like, I'm
Oh,
not cool with that.
was it a woman that was telling you this, and that's why you
It
defended
was,
it there?
which she got fucking pissed off about it because I was like quoting scripture back at her. Um, she was not happy with that response. But I was like, I agree. That's also bad. Like, you shouldn't be subjecting yourself to this either.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I mean, all kinds of shit. Particularly like the various contradictions in the Bible itself, where it contradicts itself. Um,
Yeah.
but you get people talking about the sin of empathy now, or like that Jesus was too woke, and I'm like, what are you even going to church for? Like, what is the point, man?
Yeah. I mean, if Jesus was like here active and advocating, it would not be supported by the Republican Party, which
Oh fuck no,
is the
he would be a
liberal party.
wild leftist communist. A
Yeah.
brown Middle Eastern guy hanging out with prostitutes and sick people? Fuck no.
Yeah, and so if people like if Christians strove to be like Jesus, which is what they're supposed to do, I would be very happy with the religion. And there are people that genuinely do, and I really respect the people that do, and I support that. Um,
That was the house I'm living in right now. My grandparents were both Baptist, which to my mind is one of the more harmful ones out there. Um, and they were both genuinely good people. And like to keep in mind, like my grandfather was older than sliced bread, born in 1923, lived through the Depression, never racist, never like any of those things. He and my grandmother were both old enough that they were FDR Democrats.
mhm.
Uh, and like had black neighbors. They would watch the kids. They all of this. They were really genuinely good people, and it set such a high bar for me that I found myself very disappointed in a lot of other people that called themselves Christian.
Yeah. My sentiment is always like people like to say, I don't know. I had a conversation with a coworker who had said something along the lines of, "Well, God never, God doesn't punish or something like that. Like God only provides new opportunities." And then I listed like three quotes of scripture about God punishing, and they were like, "Well, I don't believe the Bible. The Bible was written by God."
Oh yeah,
And
those are that's a whole other thing.
and then I was like, I I don't know how to proceed with this conversation. So I messaged Jessica, which is my manager. I'm like, can I get a subject change in the team chat? And then she was like, hey everyone, it's Friday. How's everyone? What's everyone's
Nice.
plans for the weekend?
That's a good manager. Well done. Yeah, I mean the one I always fall back on because frankly it's easy and there's no way around it is the people that are selling you on the idea of an omniscient and an omnipotent God cannot explain their way out of childhood cancer. Like if God is all knowing, then he knows the kid has cancer. And if he's all powerful, then he could remove that. And if he's both and doesn't, then either he doesn't exist or he's not what you're selling me.
Yeah. My my argument, and this is like a line I could basically cite. If God is all, if God, you say that God is all knowing and all powerful. And so we have the atrocities of the world, such as you could use childhood cancer, you could
Childhood
use
cancer, genocide, etc. Yeah.
genocide, yeah, yeah, any number of like big terrible events. You could even go more localized, like rape or murder or things like that of people that are random acts of violence.
The reason
Um,
that I tend to go childhood cancer is there's no free will argument to be made. Because with genocide, people can go, oh yeah, but that's human beings doing it. Whereas childhood cancer, it's like that's the kid's body doing it, like in a
okay,
way that they can't stop.
yeah. So if God is all knowing and all powerful and all good, then the atrocity could not happen. If he is all knowing and all powerful and chooses to let these things happen, it cannot be good. If he is all knowing and all good, then he cannot choose to let these things happen so he wouldn't be powerful. And if he is powerful and he is good, then he must not know about these events, but he can't be all three of these.
Yeah, I mean that's the one I remember, and it wasn't even like the thing that pushed me out of the church. I was more on my way out at the point, but I remember the church put together like $36,000 of donations to get kneelers. And I remember like having read the packets of like you can feed X African family for as little as like a couple dollars a day or whatever it was.
Hmm.
And I'm just like, do we need kneelers more than they need food? Like I just couldn't square that one.
Yeah, what kind of started to phase me out of the religion is as a child, like I was definitely indoctrinated, so I actually super believed in faith, and there was the whole Bible passage about if you had a mustard grain of faith. I couldn't remember the quote
I
exactly.
remember what you're talking about, but yeah.
Yeah, yeah, the mustard grain of faith about a mountain, then it would get up and itself. And I lived in Arizona. There was a mountain that caused severe issues, and I fully believed, and I woke up and prayed to this mountain regularly prayed to God regularly to please move the mountain because we're having critters and it's getting dangerous and there's sleet and stuff coming down. Well, that house got destroyed because of a mudslide
Yeah.
from the mountain that wouldn't move. And I fully believed it. And so then I asked people about it and they're like, well, God doesn't do things like that. I'm like, but this says he does. They're like, but he won't do that. Why? I thought he loved me. If mommy and daddy would move the mountain if they could, why won't he? Isn't he supposed to be like a father?
Yeah,
And it was
I suspect you and I were very much on the same wavelength of really pissing off, like, Bible study teachers.
yeah. I mean, I like to ask a lot of questions,
Right there with you.
and then people don't have answers to the questions, and it's not even like why questions all the time. Like you can ask why forever,
Yeah.
but it's like bringing up contradictory and things like that. People to my
Hey, why did Job give his three daughters to be raped by the congregation outside his door? That was a weird choice.
yeah. Actually, um, I converted a because I my mother sent me to like a Bible study for a little bit, um, because her boyfriend at the time and like wanting me to be active with people that were around my own age. So it's like this is a good place to do it. Well, I converted all the kids to like not atheism, agnosticism.
Yeah.
Uh, because I would consider myself probably agnostic. Um, and then it was like, well, that's that.
Yeah, I'm only agnostic in the sense that I firmly believe there's shit we don't understand. Um, but that not in the sense that I think any religion's gotten it right.
Yeah, I agree with that. That's kind of where I'm at.
I used to
Uh,
be sort of on the train that like I oppose most organized religions, but like Buddhism was okay. And then a bunch of Buddhists in Myanmar undertook a genocide against Rohingya Muslims that goes on to this day, and I was like, well, can't do that anymore.
yeah.
The only organized religion I think I can still say with certainty is like fine is Jainism,
Well,
which
I think
is
that it is
incredibly pacifistic to the point that they like wear masks so that they don't swallow bugs. So I think they're fine.
fair. Hmm. There's the Church of Satan, but that's not really a religion.
Sorry, I lost you on that one.
I said there's the Church of Satan, but that's not actually a real religion. It's a social
No,
religion.
you're thinking of the Satanic Temple. The
Oh, that's
Church
what
of
I'm thinking
Satan
of. The
was Anton
Satanic Temple.
LaVey's church that actually did do Satan worship. The Satanic Temple is broadly a political action group, though they are legally defined as a religion in the United States.
Yes, that one. That's what I'm thinking of.
Yes, I am firmly a fan of theirs because every time some idiot in Louisiana is like, "Hey, we need to put the Ten Commandments out in front of the courthouse," they go, "Okay, cool. How about also our statue of Baphomet,
Yeah.
which is a great statue." I don't know if you've heard the weird thing that happened with that.
No, what happened?
So back when the Chilling Adventures of Sabrina came out on Netflix,
Okay.
she goes to whatever the like witch school is, and there was a statue of Baphomet in there. And I went, oh, cool. They got, the rights to use the design that the Satanic Temple made.
Hmm.
And I read later that they got sued by the Satanic Temple because they used the exact design without permission, and I was like, oh shit. And I suspect what happened was, some intern was told to, find a Baphomet statue, and
And
they
they
looked it
they
up on
Googled it
Google,
and
found
found
an image,
theirs.
and were like,
Yeah,
okay, cool, we'll just use this, not knowing that it was a copyrighted work.
yeah, probably. I bet that was
Uh,
hell for the producers.
but yeah, I was like, oh, that's cool that they worked together. No, they didn't.
Yeah,
It
they
is a great
are.
statue, though.
Yeah. Um, if I have to associate with an organized religion, that I'm my beliefs are most aligned with.
Well, yeah, because the seven tenets of the Satanic Temple are basically just humanitarianism.
Yeah, pretty much.
And I mean, philosophically, I am utilitarian, which
Okay.
is just basically you do the best good for the most people you can. Actual utilitarianism is theoretically maximizing happiness. But if we
Mhm.
wanted to do that, we would just hand out enough heroin for everyone to overdose all at once and go out happy together.
Yeah.
So that's not terribly useful. But in order to maximize, like, do the best good for the most people, is where I fall philosophically, and which is why I'm, opposed to billionaires existing at the same time as starvation. Like,
Yeah.
can't square that.
Yeah. I think
Um,
billionaires are fine if everyone was in a position where they were
if
living in.
basically, my opposition currently to the U.S. government, and for my entire life, basically, is that the richest government on the planet could and is choosing not to meet the base level of Maslow's hierarchy of needs for each of its citizens.
Yeah.
There is absolutely no excuse for it, but for to pad the defense budget and put more money in the pockets of billionaires and defense contractors.
Yeah.
That alone is my base opposition to the government, and it's what frustrates me about voting for Democrats is I'm well aware that they are not on the wavelength of like getting all of that going. Like they're better, but most of the time I'm voting Democrat, it's just a not Republican vote.
Yeah. I mean, the government is for profit.
And
That
that's what
is the
frustrates me.
problem.
Like people talk about, the post office not making money, and the post office does make money. The only reason it didn't for a little while there was because congressional Republicans required them to put together the funding for every single employee's retirement, like 80 years out or some shit.
Yeah.
And then they went back to making money later. But even if they didn't, it's like, okay, we pay taxes to provide services. Like, it's fine if something doesn't make money. Sometimes you just do things and people pay taxes into a system to provide programs to help other people, be that police, fire, food stamps, whatever.
You want to help people in America,
Yeah, I
or
know, I know. I'm a fucking radical. But basically the idea that like X program doesn't make money, it's like not all of them need to. That's what taxes are for. We pay for those so people can, use these systems. There's no need necessarily for it to profit. If it does, hooray. If not, we don't fucking worry about it. Now, if it's like losing money at X rate, like, okay, we can maybe talk about how to make it more efficient. But if
yeah, because
the design is that
obviously
it is paid for
in
and it costs whatever money we paid for it, that's fine.
yeah, that is called infrastructure.
Yes. But if you look at like politicians hate spending money on infrastructure because it's not a cool or sexy thing that you can say on the campaign trail. I'm gonna maintain the shit that we already have. Just doesn't come across as like, oh yeah, I'm gonna vote for this guy, even though that's the kind of thing I want to hear as a voter. But Biden was the president who spent the most on infrastructure since fucking Eisenhower.
Yeah, I'm a single issue voter, and my issue is fucking surviving.
I'm kind of there with you, and that's the whole idea of single issue voters to me is just kind of wild. It's like, how privileged are you that you feel you can dedicate your whole vote to a single thing? Like you are
Yeah,
convinced that both parties are equal on everything but your single issue. That speaks
yeah,
either to a complete lack of education or a disingenuous argument. And like the whole idea of single issue voters behind abortion and guns is like it's just stupid.
yeah. It doesn't.
Now, granted, I am also frustrated that the Democrats won't let guns go. Like, they just go after that with the same abandon that Republicans go after abortion, with the exact same lack of knowledge of what the fuck they're talking about,
Yeah,
which is frustrating to watch because I support Democrats broadly, but that's the one issue that I'm like, hey, if we could actually get educated and stop making stupid statements about this and stop trying to ban shit that we don't understand, that would be really cool.
yeah. I mean, unfortunately, it feels like a lot of the times it's just a like lesser of two evil situation.
Well, it is, and that's where, like, if they could let go of guns, there are so many single issue voters on guns that are otherwise broadly leftist that would
Yeah,
let go and like they tried so hard to reach moderates this last thing without trying to reach the hard left base.
which is really
Um,
frustrating to
because
watch.
I mean, Democrats these days are Republicans from like 30 years ago, which is really frustrating. Just how badly the Overton window has shifted on that.
Yeah, we live in a country that exists.
Sorry.
I said we live in a country that exists.
For sure. For the moment, we'll see how that goes with this presidency, but you know,
Yeah, I got a lot of old men trying to talk to me about Trump. Yeah,
in a supportive way or like a.
in a supportive way.
Yeah, well, you are in Missouri, right?
Well, but I work across the U.S. Like this is at work on a
Oh,
recorded
okay.
phone
Yeah, okay.
call.
Gotcha.
A bunch of like old men talking to me about how Trump is the greatest president that they've ever seen.
It tells you a great deal about the amount of information they have and that it's zero. It's like, sir, what has Trump done that you liked? Because I suspect you can't name a fucking policy.
The most common one that I've heard is like veterans putting supposedly getting starting to put money back into the veteran system.
He's
That's what I hear.
destroying the VA. Like, actively. Doge is taking apart the VA piece by piece.
Yeah, but they think it's getting better.
Exactly, which tells you that they are A, low information, and B, being fed propaganda.
Yes. One of them told me, "Do you know about fake news, right?"
I mean, yeah, it was the thing that Trump spouted constantly in 2016 anytime someone pointed out a thing that he had said.
Yeah. I was like, God, please don't start. It's so much worse when they start with, "You aren't black, are you?" Because
Jesus.
I I've heard that so many times, and it's never ended up good.
Well, it's a rough starting spot, right? Like, you're
I
not going uphill from there.
like I have had so many people preface conversations with that you aren't black, are you? And then tell me about some of the most heinous shit I have ever heard that them do on their fishing trip. That shit happened to me not a few days ago, like a few weeks ago actually. But I remember it so vividly because I had to fucking walk away from my desk after. I hung up the phone on them and walked away from the desk.
I believe it, man. Like, I mean, that's been the major disappointment of Trump getting elected, right? Is like there was always a sort of racist, misogynistic underbelly to the US, But since the Civil Rights Act, they were at least aware that it was something they should be ashamed of and not put out in public. But I think Trump's first election just put all that shit out in the open. Like, people were suddenly comfortable saying that shit to other human beings around them.
Yeah. Like I won't repeat it because I don't.
I appreciate that. I would prefer not to get banned.
Yeah, you are also streaming the
Yes.
other week. Holy shit.
I heard some shit from my coworkers when I was a volunteer EMT, and I'm like, do you hate people? Like, especially I heard some like anti-Hispanic rhetoric, and I'm like, we work in an 80% Spanish-speaking area. Why are you here? Like,
If it makes you feel any better, my dentist became a dentist. Children try to feel doctor
oh yeah,
that they children. But I thought that was funny.
yeah. No, it's another thing when you look at all of the people that are supporting like getting rid of federal workers, and you recognize that because of a lot of policies about federal hiring standards, they are proportionately more black than the general population. Like general population of black Americans is somewhere around 12 to 13%, and within the federal workforce, it's closer to 20%.
Mhm.
And so there is an undercurrent of racism in attempting to remove federal employees as well that I've seen pointed out.
Okay, I'm not super familiar with that any of those statistics, so I'm not.
Again, I studied anthropology. I know a bunch of them just off the top of my head.
That's
But
fair. Yeah, it's just I don't comment on like if unless I'm educated
that makes
with
you
it.
so much better than most people. There are so many people that are like, I don't know shit about that, but I got a strong opinion.
No, if I'm not educated on a topic, I will not express an opinion on it, as I have not given myself a.
If I'm at least a little educated on a topic, I'll go ahead and throw something out there. But if somebody is like has more information and is willing to educate me further, I'll totally, change my tune.
I mean, yeah,
Which I think is the big thing that you run into these days, where someone starts with a position and they are not willing to be moved from that position, regardless of facts or reality.
well, my question that I normally have that is, what would I need to say, or what fact would change your position, or what sort of situation would change your opinion? And if someone is like, well, there isn't, well, then the conversation's over. This is a non-conversation.
Yeah, we're like at that point we're not doing anything. We're just yapping back and forth. You're behind a wall scoring three-pointers on nobody.
Yeah, and so that's been my position there.
That's always my favorite when like I'm pretty left-leaning, probably qualify as a socialist, not a communist because I recognize that communism doesn't work beyond like 500 people.
Yeah, communism is one of those things that is great in theory.
It's a lovely idea, but people suck. So,
Yeah, like if every single person was like if free will was removed, then that would be great.
oh yeah, I mean, if we were all a fucking ant colony, yes, communism's perfect.
Yeah,
Seeing as we're not,
exactly.
socialism's kind of where we gotta lean. But anytime I will tell people that, they're like, "Oh, you're a socialist," and I'm like, "Okay, I need you to define what socialism is for me before we continue this conversation, because I suspect we're on different pages about it, and I want to at least be like talking to each other rather than past each other."
Hmm.
And pretty invariably, they'll pull out some like party line bullshit. I'm like, okay, here's what it really is.
Yeah,
And
and it's
that,
like, oh,
I mean,
that's not
that's the
that.
real frustrating thing, right? Is like a lot of times they agree with a lot of my points and they're like, nope, still voting Republican. I'm like, okay. I'm like, wouldn't
That's
it be nice if we fucking helped people? And they're like, well, I guess, but can't do that. People would
like
take
that's
advantage of it. I'm like, Yeah, maybe, but
Yeah, isn't that just the best?
I mean, the frustrating thing, right? Like you and I both work in healthcare in some capacity. You look at like
Yeah,
England, where they have the NHS, and they pay less for the NHS than we do for private healthcare here to get better service and not pay for it. Like,
yeah. You
could we
want to
try
talk?
out some of that fucking free healthcare, please?
My comment with a lot of people talking about, well, we can't do like free education there is like, okay, do you support the U.S. military?
Yeah,
Yeah.
what is the GI Bill to you?
You said you support the U.S. military, and you agree with it. You know that the like primary draw factor for most young adults joining the military, which is most of the military, is free education and healthcare. So we should remove that, right? Well, no, because they worked for it. Okay, well, are people not working for it
Right? Are people
by
not paying taxes?
producing for the
Is healthcare in
country
the
and
U.S. not
paying?
often intrinsically linked to your job?
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, please, you're so close.
That's the thing to me, right? Is the people that are like on the cusp and they just can't take that last step. And I'm like, we're 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 there. You just I don't know.
Uh,
Frustrating to watch.
yeah, it's hard. Like this Watcher game. I fucking died.
Yeah, I remember back in high school we had uh like a lunch group that was an atheist girl, a couple Mormon kids, a like broadly Republican leaning guy, and me. And we
Mhm.
had some genuinely interesting conversations. We changed each other's viewpoints on some things. But all of us were basically willing to listen to each other, which is a skill that the US seems to have lost since 2016.
Yeah, yeah. And I'm okay with like people should have different views.
Yes.
That is
God, it would be
that is
fucking boring if they didn't.
yes. But people should also be open to speaking.
Well, people should be open to changing their views, and they should be open to the idea that they have been misinformed or are uninformed on a particular topic, and willing to listen to new information rather than calcifying an opinion the first time Fox News spits it out at them.
Yes. I mean, you and me have different views on guns. They're similar, to be
Sure.
fair. Like they root in the same sort of category, um, but they are different.
Yeah,
Can have a conversation about that and be like, "Well, this is my opinion, your opinion." And I sat there and I listened. I didn't really retort because it was like, it's whatever. I'm
sure.
kind of focused on the game.
No, that's fine.
But but like, I understand where you're coming from, and I see the like, I guess what's the word I'm looking for?
You
Not
understand my
rapport.
perspective. You
Thank you.
respect my
The
perspective. You just
reasoning.
don't need to share it necessarily.
Yes, I understand your reasoning and your thought process was really what I was looking to try to say.
And you and I are entirely capable of agreeing to disagree, which again seems like a lost art.
It's just going.
And that I mean that used to be what debate was in the United States, where you had the Democrat versus the Republican Party, who were both basically pushing to create what in their view was a better US for the citizens. Now, generally Republicans were much more for austerity and, bootstrap pulling, and Democrats were generally, for social programs, that kind of thing. But they could agree on reality, which I think post like Russian disinformation campaigns in 2016 just isn't a thing where you can't you can't have a debate with someone who does not believe that 10 is a larger number than 9. Like you just
Yeah,
if you're not operating in the same space to that degree, like what's the point of debate? Because you don't agree on what is real.
yeah. So it makes me sad.
It does. And the whole like aspect of people finding their own echo chambers is unfortunate. And I get the idea of like the whole concept of like what is a safe space versus what is an echo chamber. And they can certainly intermingle to some degree, but if you realize you're in an echo chamber, a lot of people like nestle further in where I'm like, okay, I need to get out because this isn't like a place for debate.
Yeah,
Nobody's sharing ideas. They're all just kind of towing the party line, which is not conducive to taking in new information or learning or growing.
have I been in an echo chamber before? I have to think about that. If I've ever been stuck.
I've had a few subreddits that I've left because I realized they were being moderated as echo chambers.
Well, I'm not really on Reddit. I don't really
It's
do
probably
social media.
healthier.
Yeah, I don't really do social media like in general.
Well, that Reddit's basically the only one I do. Um, because I was on Facebook until like 2016 because it was the only way I could find out what my theater program was doing.
Okay.
Um, and then I didn't know it at the time, but that was about the time that Cambridge Analytica started pushing the like heavily politicized stuff to draw clicks and various things like that. Um, and it went from a place that I could go to see what my friends were doing to a place where I had a bunch of propaganda shoved in my face. And so I was like,
Okay.
okay, I'm done. And I never got on Instagram, and I never got on Snapchat, and I never got on. I feel like there's another one in there. TikTok, still not on there. Um,
I
but
was on
Reddit was the
TikTok for
one
a
where,
little
like,
bit.
with
And
the
then, like,
upvote and downvote system, you could have a conversation, and someone could provide a source, and you could like go back and read that. Um,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
so I found it to be more valuable as well as being an anonymized source, so people weren't super worried about pushing their brand or whatever. And while people will say Reddit's a cesspit, and that can be true,
I mean,
I
it depends on
find
where you
that
go.
it's much more tailorable to your personal preferences. So I've got D&D subreddits, gun subreddits, news subreddits, like all kinds of
Yeah, I
stuff on
mean,
there,
it's
just that
not
I
like I
like.
haven't been on Reddit before. Like I'm in Reddit for like certain games and things like that, where it's like, okay, well, I need advice. This is like a place where I can come to in this game that people are going to be sharing opinions. Or
Yeah, absolutely.
for what's another example? Like D&D, I follow like the homebrew subreddits that like post like on
Yeah,
their
I'm on there as
4chan or
well.
like that. But it's not like I go on Reddit regularly. It's like I just, oh, this popped up on a notification. Okay, I guess I'll scroll here for a second, see if there's any.
It's one of those that I'm on a few different news subreddits because I find the aggregate nature of Reddit to be useful in gathering a bunch of sources rather than going to like one individual source. Like AP is a pretty reliable news source, but I prefer to have a bunch of different ones.
Mm-hmm.
The one that I really should get on is Ground News, which was like made by a NASA engineer to aggregate right and left leaning and give you like a topic and like here's what percentage of right leaning, centrist, and left leaning articles are reporting on it. Here are the differences in the headlines. Like here's how each side is generally spinning it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a very impressive service. I just haven't gotten around to subscribing to it because A, poor, and B, I don't, just
I
haven't
mean,
done
it's a
it.
good service. As someone who has like used it actively before, like it's solid.
It's one of those like Nebula that I feel a need to get on because there's good stuff there, and I just haven't gotten around to it.
Yeah, but like poor, like it's skill issue, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah,
Not
probably.
actually a skill issue, but like I mean, kind of a skill issue. It's a mix
I
of
mean,
both.
poverty is probably a skill issue at some level. Certainly, there are
Yeah,
no systemic markers that are making that harder for everyone.
true. I was mainly saying skill issue because you're disabled, but you know,
Yeah, inability to walk, huge skill issue.
yeah. See, you get it.
Actually, funny enough, I did walk today. It fucking hurt, but my
Yeah, no,
nurse always makes me walk before I do get the ketamine infusion,
okay. How come?
because I it builds up the strength in the leg a little bit, and then I'm gonna get shot full of drugs immediately after, so it doesn't hurt for as long.
Okay, that's fair actually.
Um, yeah, I mean, I fully understand why she does it. It's just not pleasant.
No, no, it does not sound pleasant, but it makes sense.
Yeah, it's the only time that I can walk without the cane because I'm like, okay, I'm about to be in less pain almost immediately.
Hmm. Yeah. I guess for me personally, I never use a skill issue like unironically. Like when I say that to you, I'm not like that's me saying this is something that you could probably work on, but also could just be 100%, 100,000% completely out of your control,
Yeah,
and I have no
yeah.
idea.
No, skill issue is a good one because you can use it like ironically or unironically, but it's funnier if you use it ironically.
Yeah, I agree. It's significantly funnier if like when it's just something that is completely uncontrollable. Oh well,
Yeah,
could
it
have been
sounds like a
better.
skill issue.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes, I do enjoy the phrase.
I
I
just I
not
didn't.
the best one that Zoomers have given us. I still contend that the best new slang to come out of Zoomers was yeet because it's such perfect onomatopoeia for exactly what that is.
Yeah, but you're just like old as hell.
Yes, and wait,
That's it.
did you have further thoughts on that, or am I just old?
No, you're just old.
Okay, I don't deny that did start in like my senior year of high school.
Like like out of everything that you could have just said to me, yeet was not what I anticipated. I guess is what
Hey
I was
man, that
trying to say
for the
there.
record, that was Zoomer slang. Older Zoomers for sure, but that was Zoomer slang.
No, but like you said, that's your favorite though. Like, what do you
It's
mean
pretty
that's your
fucking good.
favorite?
It's really good onomatopoeia for exactly what that action is. Just throwing
But
something with complete reckless abandon.
your favorite?
I mean, what would your favorite be?
Mine is probably skill issue. To be fair,
Skill issue's good. Uh, I don't hate EP. EP's funny.
is EP Zoomer?
Yeah, I think so.
What's the difference between Zoomer and just chronically online?
There's definitely a mix there.
Because to
But I'm
me,
pretty sure that one came out of Zoomer slang.
okay, because to me, EP is a chronically online piece of slang, not a Zoomer slang.
Yeah, counterpoint. How many Zoomers do you know that are not chronically online?
At least two.
Impressive. But yeah,
It might be three actually.
I
It's two
don't
or
use
three.
EP personally, but like I don't dislike it. Yeet is
I,
probably the one that I actually use on occasion when I just chuck something.
I've used EP before.
Okay.
Not I've used EP only to make fun of people that are chronically online though. Like when
Okay,
I'm
that's fair. Yeah,
actively
yeah,
on
yeah.
call with them. Or if I'm like actually tired and I'm slurring my speech is the other option. Like it might have came out EP once or twice,
Yeah,
but it's not a phrase that I just like use.
I'm trying to think what else is there. Like there's some really bad ones, but the ones that have stuck around a bit are like Yeet, Skill Issue,
Well, I haven't heard anyone say yeet in like actual years though.
That's fair. It hung around to some degree, but it's not. I mean, honestly, if you're gonna pick a slang that stuck around that like really hung on culturally, it's got to be like cool from the '60s. Stuff is still
Yeah,
cool.
stuff is still cool. I guess I'm taking ectoplasm here, and if I see slavers, I just like cry myself to sleep. I guess. So,
Understandable.
could go to, or I meant thieves, or just cry myself to sleep. I guess I could go to this shop here so I can use the money, but like I do not
What
that
character are you
too.
running?
Silent.
Okay, cool.
Okay, high avocado.
The spicy avocado.
No, it's a shelled avocado.
Okay, fair.
Do you consider it spicy? I would not ever think to call this thing spicy.
I mean, it's spicy when it kicks the shit out of me.
Just don't. Simply don't let it kill the shit out of
Just do
you.
better. Yeah, fair.
That
That
I
is
can
a
I
skill
can
issue. That one
I can
is.
say unironically that one is a skill issue.
Yeah, I will not deny it.
Okay. Definitely a top spot. Okay, I can eviscerate him.
Now, I find when I get there, it's either a DPS or a block check. If I don't have enough of one of those things, I run into trouble.
So, fun fact, that's how video games work.
Yes.
You can say that about every fight in the game.
Yeah, I just find that the shelled parasite is one of those that trips me up more regularly. That
Okay,
and what's the other one in Act Two that's kind of nasty? The snake plant.
snake plant. Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, that's a nastier hallway
I'm
fight.
actually, I'm actually upgrading all strikes here. Okay, hi birds. Do I care about your existence? I don't really think I care about your existence like at all, bro. If you guys are bullet time,
I am fond of bullet
infinite,
time, especially with
yeah,
sufficient card draw to really make use of it.
yeah. Find the piercing whale here. Fuck 'em up. Okay, you buff, you're attacking. Um, bop, bop. Do you want to play together? I guess I'll offer.
I appreciate the offer. I'm like 5 to 10 minutes from hopping off for the night because I can feel that I am getting ready to pass out here.
Oh shit. Yeah. Okay. Get ready for some. Then.
I am in fact slightly eepy.
Well, I hope you enjoy your eat right now.
Yeah, I just said
Eat
it and
well.
it felt wrong. I don't know.
Eat well, bro. Eat well.
Yeah, I will be back on Sunday evening, depending on whether or not you're available. But we could potentially do something then.
Sunday, I am going to be seeing my grandparents on Sunday.
Okay, no worries.
So I guess it depends on the when. Oh, there's aberration.
Yep,
Depending on when exactly you are online Sunday, will give
I'll
more
be
options.
going live around 6 because I'm working at the gun range during the day.
6. Can I get a time zone?
Sorry, Eastern.
Eastern. I'll
I
be
think
back home by that.
5 o'clock your time.
Yeah, I'll be home by that.
Okay. So yeah, if you're up for it, I'll totally hop in with you.
Okay, sure.
Sounds
I'd be
good.
down
Thank you for
fine.
hopping on with me, Mason. Hope your wallpaper is coming well.
Yeah, she put up a panel successfully and then said this is a task for another day.
Understandable.
Yeah, I can respect it.
All right.
Alrighty, have a good night.
You too. Talk to you later.